Hello and welcome back to my channel, everyone. Today I want to talk about the plant in front of me. I haven't had it for very long, for maybe a month or two. It's a zygopetalum that I bought in bloom from a flower store, and several things went wrong with it, and I'll get into that in a moment. But first I just want to talk quickly about what I'm actually going to go through in this video, which is how to remove a rotting pseudobulb. Because as you can see here, this pseudobulb has a really nasty color. You see that brown? That's not normal. And it's also, if I press on it, it's a little bit squidgy. It's not too far gone, but it's again quite squidgy. Don't know how well you can see that. Maybe if I focus and then press down on it. Can you see it kind of a little bit? So yeah, not good. And that needs to be removed before it spreads. So in this video I'll be talking about why you need to remove rotting pseudobulbs, how to do it, what to look out for in the future, and how to also prevent secondary infections from, well, cutting away the pseudobulb. So now a little bit of background about the plant itself. So as I said, I got it from a florist in bloom. It was a zygopetalum. It still is a zygopetalum, actually. And I bought it because I didn't have a zygopetalum yet and I hadn't seen one before. So I absolutely had to have it. On top of that, it smelled like hyacinths, so what's not to love? Thing is, I bought it without really knowing how to care for it. And I clearly did something wrong because the new growth that I had at the time rotted away quite quickly, actually. And I'm relatively certain, pretty certain, that I tried my very best to not get any water into the actual new growth. Like here you can see a new one going. Like if you get water in the center, you have a good chance of contracting rot. But I tried my best to avoid that, and yet it still didn't go right. Here you can see the stump of what remained. Not great, not pretty. So when it started rotting, I cut it away as much as I could, but I wanted to keep the eyes there, and I wanted to keep the roots there, and I was hoping that that would be okay, that the rot wouldn't have gotten to it yet. And when it dried up like this, because this is really dry, like papery, I assumed that meant that I cut away enough of the rot and the rot had not progressed. But clearly, I'm proven wrong, because you can see that this pseudobulb is rotting quite a lot, actually. I should have tackled this days ago, but something always comes up, doesn't it? So I'm tackling it today with all of you. So now the question is, how do we solve this issue? We have a rotting pseudobulb and it needs to be removed. The reason it needs to be removed is because, as indicated by my story, rot tends to travel and progress throughout the plant. If you leave rot on the new growth unaddressed, or don't cut it away completely, it can progress through the rhizome and into the new pseudobulb, and from there into the next pseudobulb and into the new growth. Clearly you don't want that. That would mean the death of the plant. So we're going to cut away the rotting pseudobulb and hopefully get all the rot to stop its progression, and then hopefully this new growth can just progress into a healthy pseudobulb. This plant will be severely set back no matter what I do, whether I succeed or not, just because, as you can see, it only has 2 pseudobulbs and a new growth. And after I remove this one, he will just have this one, and it's not the biggest pseudobulb either. So I'm going to get started on that. I'll get out my surgery equipment. I have a carton box full of hydrogen peroxide and scissors and that kind of stuff, and then I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back and I have all my surgery equipment. So this is my surgery box. Here you have good old hydrogen peroxide I used to kill all the snails. This here is just some disinfecting hand gel, so that, you know, some Dettol, so that my hands can be disinfected and prevent cross-contamination between plants. Here we have a box with just good old ground cinnamon, because that's useful in drying out wounds, which, as we'll see later on in the video. I have some tweezers, so that I can easily get to bits of sphagnum moss and dead decaying material and other such things between pseudobulbs and roots. I have a knife, so I can cut away areas of the plant that are too difficult to cut away with scissors. I have some scissors, which are blunt by now and I should replace, but they function well enough for now, I suppose. And I have this pin, which I use to get really small material from little crevices. I don't use it very often. It's handy to have. It's come in useful a few times. And in this box I have cotton buds, which are used to remove water and other grime and apply hydrogen peroxide. So that's what I've got in my little surgical kit right over here. There we go. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is take the outer pot out of the inner pot and put that on a plate which I have not prepared. And I'm back with my tray. So we've got the plant here on the tray. This little rope you see here was my stabilizer for the plant. After this rolled away, the roots died as well, and it wasn't anchoring the plant properly anymore, so this was just here to keep the plant anchored. So I can cut that off now, because I'm going to unpot this orchid, which will also give us a look at the root system, which I expect to be pretty terrible. Oh, this orchid is in a bad state. And I don't think that's only the pseudobulbs and the leaves that have fallen off. I think it's all round not very healthy. Maybe a goner. I don't know. This is my first zygopetalum. I haven't got much experience with it. So far, it's not going so well. Let's see. So we'll just try and gently pull it out. Okay. You can see that it's leaving behind development of the roots. So some of those roots are indeed not doing all that well. Feels gross, icky, and dead. Not great. Just gonna put that in the bin. Okay. The part we're interested in today, though, is primarily the pseudobulb. So let's make sure the camera is focused. You see how the rot has really changed the color from this bright green to this brown. Let's see if I can show you the squidginess a little bit better now. Yeah, it seems to be focused. See that? Yeah, you can see it now, right? That's not good. It means the tissue is being liquefied by bacteria. Oh, right. I should have told you this before I did it. I didn't mean to already do it. It was just that fragile. So the rhizome is together like this. And all I'm going to do is wiggle it until it let go. So I wiggled it and it let go. Very, very easily. And I think I'm in trouble. Because, hold on. That rhizome looks like it's already rotting. So I might be too late. Maybe it's already reached a pseudobulb. I'm going to see if I can cut it away a bit better with the box cutter knife. Which has been sterilized, don't worry. And see whether I can find any part of the rhizome that's not awful. I'm gonna get myself a cutting board, one moment. Okay, I've got my cutting board. So now I'll try and cut away as much of the rhizome as I can without hopefully impacting the new growth. Because if the new growth is dead, then this plant is dead. It's that simple. All these roots were dead anyway, so just took it all off. Put that in the bin. Now, is there anything alive here? This one's alive. And this one's alive. So these two. This one's dead, this one's dead, this one's dead. Wonderful. All dead. Okay, so let's separate those. Dead. I'm not seeing much good over there. This plant might actually be done for. After some consideration, I decided that it's best to actually cut off the bottom of the pseudobulb, because I'll try and show it to you on the video, but it is a bit difficult and I am afraid my camera isn't of high enough quality. Well, let's see. Right over there, okay. It's difficult to see for you, I think. But the thing is that the pseudobulb is already starting to rot from the bottom. Let me just see if I can blow it up even more. Okay, so it's very difficult to see, but the bottom of the pseudobulb, basically over here, is already starting to rot. Which means that cutting away the rhizome isn't going to be enough. I can't cut away the pseudobulb because the plant needs the pseudobulb. There's no way that this little growth can survive on its own. Even though, good news, that's the one good piece of news in this whole scenario. Zoom in on that. That there is a tiny little root nubbin right over here. So that's the one piece of good news in this whole scenario, is that it is actually starting to make new roots, and new roots will be there soon. But still, this little new growth, there's no way it can survive without this pseudobulb. So this pseudobulb needs to stay. There's no debate about that. I cannot remove it. These roots, the top still feels firm and like it works. The bottom, however, is dead. And I really question how long this will remain alive. So the risk of the rot spreading throughout this pseudobulb and to the new growth, I think by far outweighs the benefit that these roots might be providing. So I think I'll at least remove this. But then, because I can already see some of the rot spreading into the bottom of the pseudobulb, I think what I'll do is I'll remove the bottom of the pseudobulb. Now this should remove all the rot and thus stop the rotting process. But it will leave a very big and gaping open wound, and that leaves it vulnerable to secondary infections. So I'm going to have to dry the pseudobulb and the wound of the pseudobulb out very thoroughly to prevent such secondary infections. But that's the plan right now. So I'm going to, once more, just to recap, I'm going to remove the bottom part of the pseudobulb in order to stop the rot from progressing through the pseudobulb and the new growth. So I'll take my knife again. I have re-sterilized it because it's a good idea when you're removing rotting parts of the plant to sterilize it between cuts, since otherwise you might just be transferring the bacteria that are causing the rot to the clean wound afterwards. Okay, so again, I need to be careful not to actually damage the new growth. That would be catastrophic. The plant would definitely be dead. So I'm going to start on that end. I'm going to just cut away like that. The next thing to do is to inspect the wound. The wound looks very green, very clean. I don't see any sign of rot. So I think we're good now. This part is clear of rot, I think. So I'm going to dry out the wound. Now the best way to do that, as far as I know, is with the use of cinnamon powder. It's just normal generic cinnamon powder that you find in supermarkets. And I use a cotton bud as well. And I just make sure there's some cinnamon on the cotton bud. Then I take the plant and I just apply it to the wound. Okay, so I take some more. And you keep doing that until the wound is more or less completely covered in it. And this is really important because when the wound is dry, there won't be nearly as much of a risk of infection as when the wound is wet. When the wound is wet, all kinds of pathogens and microbes and fungal spores can get into the pseudobulb and start propagating and infecting. And that's absolutely not something we want. The other thing we want to be careful with, by the way, when working with cinnamon. So cinnamon is a very powerful desiccant, which means it dries out, drying agent. And it can be very powerful with unintended side effects. So if I, for instance, leave some of the cinnamon on the new growth, especially near where the little new root is coming from, it might be that it desiccates the little new roots. And that's definitely not something we want. So we need to make sure that any excess cinnamon is removed from the plant so that we don't have more desiccation than we actually want. So I just do it by blowing on it. It's very simple. Not the most sterile way, but hey, I'm not working in a lab. It's a non-sterile environment anyway. So most of the cinnamon, the excess cinnamon, should be brushed off now. And that's what the wound looks like. Okay. So the important thing now is to keep this dry, to make sure that it does not become wet again, start rotting again, and to make sure that this wound manages to callus over. Once the wound is calloused over, the risk of infection has basically passed. So that's important, which means that I'll be leaving this without any medium on a shelf somewhere near a ventilator for maybe, I don't know, a day maybe. I'll keep monitoring it and coming back to it occasionally to see how the wound looks. But it will take a little while, and when it's done, I'm not going to put it back into a pot of medium, because I don't know how I would do that, honestly. Stabilize this. I think I'm going to try the swag and bag method with this one, which I'll talk about in a different video next time when I actually do it. That's been the process of concentrated rot on this plant. As you can see, there is very, very little left, almost nothing. If this plant makes it, which is an if, it's going to be very severely set back. Now, I don't know if I have the actual patience to deal with a plant like that, especially for a zygopetalum that I bought because I don't have a zygopetalum and not because I like the flowers all that much. It smelled nice, but you know, that's about it. So, I'm not sure if I'll actually keep it. But for now, at least, it's given me the opportunity to learn from it, treat rot, to share it with you as well. So I'm still quite thankful for this experience, for being able to actually make this video and go through it. And who knows, maybe I'll learn a lot from the recovery process as well. I expect that I will. And perhaps, and that's a big perhaps, I'll actually hold on to it and we'll see it flower again in the future. But for now, this is all. And I hope to see you again next time.